The day is finally here.
It is. I'm really excited about this one. This is a slightly different episode with a company that I never thought that we would be having as a guest on the show because
Yeah, a
I
name we
never
both
thought, yeah, I
yeah,
never thought that this
name we're
would
both
happen.
familiar with, but not in this context. But
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a little bit.
yeah. I'm Phil Royle. I'm one of the podcast co-hosts here, and been doing content creation and automotive journalism for two decades, 2.5 decades. Oh my
Too
gosh.
long.
Uh,
Nice.
I also sell T-shirts as a side gig to my side gig that you can find at thewildcard.com/store. And there we have hats, we have shirts, we have water bottles, we
Now
have
backpacks
everything. Oh, we have backpacks, we have
and
a
hats,
lot
of
of stuff.
course.
Hats,
Little
yep.
little
And
fashion show.
if you're watching the video version, which we now do but do not promote, then you can see Ed modeling a lot of this stuff.
Ed Sanchez, likewise, 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Current day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
So,
And without further ado, uh, today's guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and we'll just get
Sure.
right into the discussion.
Happy to. I'm Steve Sumner. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Innovation at the Lincoln Electric Company, leading Lincoln's new initiative into EV charging space, along with some other really cool things that our company is working on. 37 years with Lincoln Electric, always on pretty much the welding equipment, power conversion, electrical equipment side of our business, which is pretty sizable. Also a car guy, EV
Nice.
owner. Yeah, race a C5 Corvette on the weekends, drive my Q8 e-tron as my daily driver. As an EV person, and happy to be here.
Nice. Well, we're happy too because Phil and I both came from the automotive aftermarket side of the business. We were both many years in that side of the media space. And so we're both very familiar with Lincoln Electric. And
Yeah,
we've only
great.
recently gotten into EVs. And I was like, wait a minute, don't they do welders?
yeah, no, I've
Yeah,
used I've
Yeah.
used a Lincoln Electric welder to, well, I call it welding. Others
uh,
do not. One of my fabricator friends says I'm a grinder, not a welder. I just, when Ed brought this to my attention that you guys are getting into the EV space, my mind just blew. Like
yeah, yeah,
I, I didn't. It was like completely out of left field. I didn't know why this was happening. I was happy it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
because to me, you have a Lincoln Electric welder, it works. It works every time. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's
exactly.
it's one of the better brands that you can get. Like you just don't
Yeah,
think about it. You get that, it is the right decision. And so for a company like that to then get into the EV space,
It's
that
encouraging. Yeah.
yes. It,
yeah,
so why, I guess,
Yeah.
is my
Why and
yeah.
where,
question.
when did the conversation start
Great
around this?
question. Great question. What happened? Our CEO, about 5 years ago, really came to me as kind of one of our strategy leaders and said, "Hey, we've been um, doing the welding thing for a long time. We're very, very good at it. We're the world's largest welding company. What else do you think we could do with our core kind of competencies, native technologies, to grow the business, add to the industry, help make the world a better place?" I looked at, a number of different industries, but settled on EV charging for a couple reasons. One, the basic perception that this industry could really use a better piece of equipment, better piece of
Mhm.
hardware, and we'll get into why that, why Lincoln is good at that. Secondly, the industry really needs better service. So if something goes wrong, right, and Lincoln's built its whole business around making great products, but also servicing the heck out of our customers across the board. Three, we wanted to give back, right, to the industry, the world. Our motto is build a better world, right? And so When these three things kind of align, then it was a natural thing to, hey, let's investigate this space. Let's really understand a little bit better what the industry needs, what customers want, how to just confirm that our assumption that we could add value. And so as we started diving in, we didn't know it, but come to find out, the founder of our company, James Lincoln, patented regenerative braking in 1900.
Wow.
And was a patent holder from 1914 and 1919 for a number of different EV charging technologies. What was going on? Well, the Lincoln Electric Company was on East 38th Street here in Cleveland, and the Baker Electric Car Company was right next door. So these two industries were in the turn of the century evolving at the same time. The Baker Electric Car Company making early EVs, and Lincoln Electric deciding, well, just how can we help that space? We made our first home charger around 1920. And so there's some ads that you can find out there, about Lincoln, participating in this space. And then, Mr. Ford introduced the ICE engine in 1925-ish, right? And that whole thing really went away.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, and so then we moved on to, well, other core. How do we take what we developed at that time as a core competency and turn it to something else? And we turned to welding. Okay. So it was kind of like a back to the future moment for us. Like, holy crap, we have been in this space a long time ago and never knew it, if you will. But the impetus remains the same. That, look, what Lincoln is really, really good at is making power conversion devices. They happen to be welding machines, but we take AC wall power and we make DC out of it. And we manipulate that DC current to weld with. And we have learned over 128 years how to make products that live their whole lives outside, that have, Six Sigma level performance in the field, right? Because that's what our customers demand. And then back it up with really smart people and really great service, so that anybody who buys a Lincoln Electric piece of equipment is going to be very happy with their purchase, right? And over all of that time, we've expanded to now you can buy, like you mentioned, Phil, a welder in Home Depot, right? To multi-million-dollar, welding systems that are making, in the nuclear industry, for example, right? So across that full spectrum, a couple of things that we have learned is that ultimate field uptime and field reliability is paramount. Even if you paid $500 for a welder in Home Depot, if something were to go wrong with it, you're not happy, right? How do we make sure that that doesn't happen to the best of our ability? And at General Motors, for example, it's $100,000 an hour for downtime, typically in the automotive industry. And we make them make all the truck frames for their business, aluminum truck bodies, all of that. And so where it's super mission critical in the welding space, all those same technologies are applicable to the charging space. So that's been the why was, hey, we believe we've got something to offer. We believe the industry needs a company like Lincoln. Needs a better product, needs better service, all of that. And then, of course, a US company being tied to this build out of EV infrastructure just seemed a natural kind of connection, again, to our founding, our mission as a company. And we're one of the only, if not the only, truly US manufacturers of a DC fast chargers today.
I'm assuming the kind of impetus of this started well before the IRA or NEVI or any of that. Could you give us a little bit of a timeline of kind of where it kind of started, where it is now, and
for sure. I mean, we first started looking at it in earnest around April of 2022.
Okay. So fairly recent then. Okay.
Yeah, and decided, this is something that we think we can do something with, and again provide value. We made our first DC fast charger in 90 days. We took the underlying welding equipment technology, repurposed it, starting in August of 22, and put our first test charger in the ground, charging cars in 90 days. Which just gave us a really good feeling that, hey, that, you know, our underlying assumption that, you know, our native capability should work here was
Validated
confirmed,
that.
right? Now we knew that we had a lot to learn being new, right? And so we started charging cars and learning all of the foibles of vehicle communication and all of those types of things. But again, the underlying technology was very amenable. In fact, we had to dumb the welder down to become a charger. Because yeah, a charger is just a straight constant current device, right? And for welding, we manipulate the current at, you know, 100 times a second, right? And so, wow, we're like, wow, this is really simple. It's just you know, a simple constant current device.
So
In
was there
any
a
event,
lot of like
yeah,
crossover? I mean, did you have to go and buy anything new to make your first charger, or
nope,
was it all
nope,
kind of off the
nope.
shelf already in the warehouse?
Yeah, we took, you know, we were using modules already, right? So like the idea of using like 50 kilowatt modules, we were already doing that in the welding topology that we picked. So that the whole architecture already existed. We had to convert, you know, a welding machine is high current, low voltage. You know, so 1,000 amp welder is normal for us. Might only be at 50 volts. So we had to take that same thing and say, no, we want
Kind of
1,000
flip-flop it.
volts, okay, and
Yeah.
only 50 amps, you know, to make a 50 kilowatt module. So we had to, you know, convert some things around, but the underlying architecture was about 80% already done.
Wow.
So
That makes it like an obvious, like,
yeah,
in my mind, it was like, what in the world? But the
Yeah,
reality
yeah,
is it's super obvious.
yeah. We kind of already know how to do most of this. We just need to twist a few
exactly.
knobs here and there.
Exactly. And then the other thing that was kind of different for Lincoln than the other folks, let's say, is our existing architecture for, you know, these welding systems is all digital. So the idea of saying, you know, hey, we want different modules, we want them to be able to communicate together, we want them to share power, we want them to, you know, work in concert to get this result for the charging the vehicle, was already developed and done for the welding space, because that's how you do many of the welding challenges that are already faced. So the idea of making a modular system, something that is upgradable, something that can be 50 kilowatts to a megawatt, something that can you know, handle different voltages, handle different scenarios, was something we already developed for the welding space. Whereas a lot of the, let's say, competitive, or let's say current products that you see on the market is really just off-the-shelf components, like analog, like, you know, like if you were a panel builder and you were building a PLC type thing, you know, for your for something, you would buy these off-the-shelf components and you would screw them in a box and you would make the thing work. Okay, fine. Our whole architecture is totally different. It's all digital inside. And because of that, it was very easy, quote unquote, right, to make a charger out of it, quite frankly. One that's modular from the beginning.
So I know you already had a lot of kind of the core competencies and I guess the toolbox, for lack of a better
Yep.
term, of components you could put together. Up to you if you want to name names or not, but were there any particular units or companies you benchmarked, like before you started doing your own, saying these guys are best of class, you know, we want to see what makes them tick, and you know.
Sure. And I would say that we looked at the, you know, the two hot regions for that type of stuff is you look at the Asia, right? A lot of, you
Asia
know,
and Europe,
EV vehicles and EV charger manufacturers in Asia, and then you look at Europe, right? Same thing, much more developed marketplaces. And so we looked at manufacturers from both of those locations, saw stark differences between, you know, the different
the
approaches, if you will,
approach, yeah.
between those two spaces. And you know, we're wonderfully confirmed that the approach that we were on would fit the space, right? So again, radically different approaches to the design of the device, how, you know, how they manage you know, the charging, if you will. But so in looking at those two, we said, wow, we are on the right track. Now we've got a lot to learn, right? Still are learning something every day. But you know, the when we benchmark those, we said, yeah, we can do this.
So one question I have, and I know welding and Lincoln's history is more in kind of the DC space,
Yeah,
and your current product offerings are DC fast chargers.
yeah.
Um, are you looking at or considering level two space at all, or is that just kind of not even on the radar?
Yeah, I think what early on when we looked at the space, obviously you have home charging,
Hmm.
you have kind of 230 level two,
Hmm.
destination or home charging, and then you have fast charging. And just looking at that quick space, and we were saying, hey, if we wanted to get in here and use our core competencies the best, DC fast charging made the most sense
Hmm. Hmm.
because that's what the welding machines are like, right? If you will. Um, uh, do we think that there's an opportunity for Lincoln to participate in level two charging? Yes, for sure.
Hmm.
All the things that we bring to the party in terms of field reliability, broadening out the ecosystem to include the whole customer experience
Hmm.
for charging plus service, they
Hmm.
still all apply in the level two space as well,
Hmm.
right? But there's so many more competitors,
Hmm.
and quite frankly, we didn't know yet whether we added enough value in that particular area to say, yeah, that's a target.
Hmm.
Now
Hmm.
that we've learned a lot,
Hmm.
and we're well into the DC space,
Hmm.
level two might make some sense.
Yeah.
Um, don't have a
I
plan
was.
for it yet, but
Mhm.
it,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
might
I
make
was
sense.
just
Yeah,
looking at it from the standpoint of, obviously you guys have a lot of commercial customers in terms of the
for sure.
welding equipment. You're a very well recognized brand name. Um, Probably a lot of fleets use
Yep,
your products. A lot of fleets have kind of a central depot where their trucks sit basically overnight,
for
um,
sure.
which would lead itself more to level two than level three. So, I definitely think there's probably an opportunity there. Probably branding for like, I think like, contractor and kind of truck guys. You're, like I
Yeah,
said, you're a very well recognized name. I think a
yep,
lot of them would be very proud to have a Lincoln electric charger in their garage. So yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
and yeah,
seems like it would fit. So.
it's definitely an option. And quite frankly, just in introducing our level three, DC fast chargers, we do get asked the question from many customers. Hey, I would like to get a portfolio of products, including level two, level three, all from
Hmm.
one company so that I can rely on service. I can, have that business relationship. And so again, even
Hmm.
from a business perspective, we think that it might make very good sense in the future for Lincoln to do level
Hmm.
twos.
So it's something you're looking at for sure. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
for sure.
Yeah,
Always,
excellent.
always.
Um, I want to circle back to that term Six Sigma. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
kind of vaguely familiar with it from like, reading kind of business books, but for the regular Joe, that's literally like Greek. It's like,
Yeah,
what does this mean?
yeah, sorry for that. I mean, it's just an industry standard around performance. So
Hmm.
when we talk about the performance of our products in the field, 99% what we people here would call uptime.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the goal. That's the minimum,
Hmm.
right? And when we hear things like, or read articles in the San Francisco Chronicle that 25% of DC fast chargers are broken in the
Hmm.
field, or a significant portion of charging sessions just simply fail for
Hmm.
one reason or another. Um, we look at that and say, wow, if that
Hmm.
was our business as a welding business, we wouldn't
They'd
be
be
in
out of
business.
business.
Right. Because our customers have so much higher expectations for the
Hmm.
performance of the whole solution, not just the hardware, but everything else that goes into including software and whatnot. It
Hmm.
simply has to work, right?
Hmm.
In our current business. So applying that same mentality, that same approach, those same core competencies that the whole company is
Hmm.
built on, again, we think
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. And for us, Six Sigma,
Hmm.
99%
Does that have
performance.
anything to do? I mean, I'm familiar with the term ISO 9001 or
Yeah.
whatever. Does that tie into that at all, or no?
Yeah, some. I mean, ISO
Yeah.
9001 is a standard that says, what do you do?
Hmm.
Write it down. This is
Hmm.
what we do. This is how we control quality. This is how we define performance. This is how we
Hmm.
design things. And then prove that you do that every day.
Hmm.
So if you're ISO 9001 certified, you're saying this is how we do things, and look, we do it every day, right?
Hmm.
And so in our current business, yeah, we're 9,001, but also 14,001 and all
Mm-hmm.
the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
is really just the company to commitment to say, we're going to do what we say we're going to do, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
prove it to you.
Awesome. I've got more questions, but if you want to jump in, Phil.
No, I was just
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. So I mentioned in a previous episode that Ed and I, we're in California, and we very much live in a bubble in
Hmm.
the EV world.
Yeah.
Because California is like ground zero for a lot of this. There's a handful of states, but you live in California, you see EVs all the time. Like everybody's got one here. There are chargers everywhere. All the chargers are being used. There's
Yeah.
lines for the chargers. If they're going to break, we're going to see it. Like this is ground zero for all of this. And I went on a trip recently to the middle of America and saw over the course of 1 week, saw one EV.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's not the rest of America is not getting it. It's California is an exception, and some other states, New York and Texas, Florida
Yeah.
kind of thing. But what is kind of the what are you getting back from your customers? Because your customers are
Mhm.
definitely they're more of I would imagine very much in the middle of America.
Mhm.
For sure.
I mean, you've got
Yeah.
customers everywhere, but I imagine,
Yeah.
you're representative of America, not
Yeah.
not of the fringe of California when it comes to EV adoption.
Or the coast or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what kind of feedback have you gotten, or do they just kind of like, they've got their
Oh, that's
welder
cool.
and
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I would say a couple things. One, EV adoption in everywhere across the U.S. is growing for sure, right? It's definitely on the coasts mostly, but in the middle here,
Mhm.
people are finding that, hey, this is a great way to go, right?
Mhm.
And in most cases, customers will say, we are so excited that a company like Lincoln is getting into this space because you're going to bring sanity to the market. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, for different people, that means different things, but hopefully it means, again, a better product, service, all that, right? Um, but we're like one of the only companies in the Midwest, right?
Mhm.
And so when we hosted the Char-In Festival here at Lincoln
Hmm.
2 times, in both cases, lots of people came from the traditional, OEM space, if you will,
Mhm.
because Cleveland is right next to Detroit. We're in the
Mhm.
middle. We're easy to get to, if you will. And so we think it just broadens out, right, the awareness and broaden out the adoption, right, by having a
Mhm.
very well-known Rust Belt company, right, getting into
Mhm.
the EV space and say, look, this is not just on the coast. This is not just over there. It is in the heart of America, and
Mhm.
this is good for everybody.
Mhm.
So we're excited that a lot
Yeah.
of the NEVI projects and all those things, whether it's Tennessee and West
Mhm.
Virginia and Ohio and Michigan and all that, are evolving because we're
Mhm.
we're right in the heart of it.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about is kind of the branding aspect of this, because a lot of manufacturing or manufacturers of EVSEs, EV charging equipment, they kind of take a white label approach. They sell you the box and then they say, oh, we'll put 7-Eleven or Shell or whoever on it. Um, what is Lincoln's approach to Velion, and how's it being sold, packaged, marketed, or is that kind of still kind of evolving as we speak? So.
Yeah, no, so we are very open to however the industry wants to move. We think the Lincoln
Hmm.
Electric brand means something.
Hmm.
We're excited when people say, "Oh, I know your company," right?
Hmm.
And what your brand means, what you're known for. And so a lot of the companies that we have talked to as potential customers have said, "Look, we want Lincoln on the product.
Hmm.
We might also want our name on there too, just so that they build their brand.
Hmm.
But we want Lincoln on the product." So
Hmm.
we're happy to do whatever makes sense to the customer. If they want a completely white labeled product, we would do that, no
Hmm.
problem. But adding Lincoln on there, in most cases,
It's a
most
net
customers are like, yeah,
positive. Yeah.
that's what we want. right? So we're happy to do whatever customers want because again, we think that we can add something to the space and there's a reason for us to be here.
So then I guess that begs the question of who is the customer? Is
Yeah.
it the I mean, you've got a great relationship with tons of companies that are doing
Industrial,
that are doing like industrial work that have maybe a fleet of vehicles that might be going electrifying that. Is that the customer base, or is it kind of reaching out and doing like, where you have
hospitality, retail,
yeah,
convenience.
like what do you view as I imagine
Yeah.
there's a primary one and then, you go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're very clear with potential customers. Look, we are the hardware manufacturer. We're not trying to be more than that. We don't want to be a charge point operator. We're not here to own and operate stations. We're not looking to make revenue off of selling electricity. Where we add value in the space is making great hardware, great service, and providing all of that support. So we're very clear where we fit. Okay. And we think that's really a better approach because then it's very clear, right? Then what we do and where we add value and what other people do, those lines of demarcation are clear. So customers for us range from the big charge point operator networks, nationwide type stuff that run their whole system, are looking to buy great hardware but also provide software and do all that and make their money off of selling electricity, to electrical contractors, to engineer procurement companies, engineer procure construction companies. They're going to build a whole station and turn it over to somebody else, something like that. So being just the hardware provider, again, it really broadens out, what we do. We don't want to overstep our bounds and get into areas where, we are over promising and under delivering. Lincoln's built its reputation by, the opposite, right? And so sticking to our knitting it makes sense to us, and that's just making great kit and servicing it.
So along those lines, the software then becomes a question to me,
Yeah.
because if there's one thing that I associate with Lincoln, it's mechanical excellence, not necessarily software prowess. I just plug my welder in and I use it. There is no complexity with that, and that's the beauty of it. Is there's like,
well, to the user, maybe behind the scenes, like you said, it's a lot more complicated, but
there's more processing power in the welder today than in your laptop, quite frankly. So there's a lot going on in a high-end welding machine for automation, for robotic welding, that type of stuff. So it's very, very powerful. We write all our own software for that scenario. So the other thing is, we've been running our own IoT, network, if you will, on the welder side since 1999. So there are thousands of welding machines around the world that are all networked together. Each is their own individual, Internet of Things device.
node. Yeah.
We gather all the production data for very, very large companies, and we serve up all of their performance data, all of their production data, everything that they do every day. Why? Because the welding step is the takt time step if you're making a vehicle, right? If you're making a construction equipment device like an excavator, if you will, the welding is the step. So we serve all that production data. So the idea of creating a network that's cloud-based, that's running on the internet, that's gathering data, that's putting it all in one spot and serving up to the customer, we've been doing it for 25 years. So
I'd never thought of this. Not never. You just blew my mind that all that's being tracked, and it makes sense in today's society. It makes sense, but
and we wrote all of that ourselves because it was like, hey, there is no place to go for this. We were kind of cutting edge at the time for all of that. So all of the internal software, whether you see it on the HMI that's on the front of the machine, all of the connectivity software, we write all ourselves. Everything is done in Cleveland, Ohio. And again, what that allows us to do also is really partner with customers so that when they say, hey, this is good, but I would like to see something a little bit different, it's not like we have to go offshore to have somebody write some software and come back. It's all right with our folks right here in Cleveland. So that part's been also very beneficial in creating and adding value
Hmm.
to the customer base.
So that
We think, yeah,
this gets me kind of to circle back. You say your core competency, excuse me, core competency and focus is on the hardware aspect.
yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any either internal requirements or requirements of potential customers so that you don't inadvertently get a black eye. Like if it's an issue with the network or whoever your customer is, customers see Lincoln, oh, Lincoln Electric,
Yeah.
what a piece of crap,
Yeah, so the when I say we write the software, everything that's
Hmm.
in the charger and everything like that, we do ourselves.
Hmm.
Obviously, in this particular industry, there's a charge management system. It's,
Hmm.
a cloud-based thing. We don't write charge management software.
Hmm.
Um, but the total solution that a customer gets is that combination of a charge management software and the hardware. So
Hmm.
yes, we are spending a tremendous amount of time integrating with those folks, really
Hmm.
understanding how these two pieces come together in that total solution
Hmm.
that a customer sees. Yes, we are pretty demanding,
Hmm.
if you will. And we actually offer, partner software so that if a customer wants just one company to deal with, they can get both the hardware and the charge management system through
Hmm.
Lincoln. But the charger is CMS agnostic. It'll work
Hmm.
on any, right?
Hmm.
But we do like to work very closely with those people because a significant portion of the value proposition is stuff that you can't get necessarily
Hmm.
through the standard, let's say, OCPP connection.
Hmm.
Because you want to know more stuff. And we know a lot about
Hmm.
what's going on in the charger and the vehicle and whatnot because of the way we've designed it. So we believe we can create a lot more value than your typical, let's say, charger,
Hmm.
if that makes
On
sense.
that note, what have work have you done in the area of like, I guess, predictive diagnostics?
Hmm.
Because to your point where you said earlier, as many as 25% of charging
Yeah.
stations in the area are down or inoperable for whatever reason. Um, it's inevitable over time, stuff's going to wear out. There may be some. So what have you done in terms of like potential troubleshooting where it's like, okay, this is still working, but this little
Yeah.
red flags coming up, like this may need some work soon.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the benefits of having deep experience in IoT, if you will, is that not only do we look at what the charger's doing or what the welding machine is doing, we're looking deep inside the device. So we look at all the device temperatures, so the switching elements, fan speeds, airflows, ambient temperatures,
Hmm.
all the things that would indicate and give you what more information as to what is the environmental situation with this particular
Hmm.
charger, and how is it performing,
Hmm.
or
Is it
welding
within
machine, if you
spec?
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're charting all of that and you're getting that big data type of approach, right, then you can build predictive models.
Hmm.
So within our typical environment, we do preventative maintenance, right? So we serve up all the preventative maintenance schedules to customers. But then as
Hmm.
we use machine learning and AI, to use that term
Hmm.
loosely, then you can build upon those big data models and do predictive maintenance,
Hmm.
right? And say, hey, in Phoenix, so we know the geolocation of the charger. If the charger is in Phoenix and the ambient temperatures are within this range and the charging session is lasting this long and fan speeds look like this, meaning the filters are, at what state the filters are, now you can start doing things that say, and reach out to a customer and say, hey, you might want to go look at this charger a little bit earlier than you normally would, because it would appear that it's in this particular condition. So
Hmm.
and preventative, sorry, just doing routine maintenance, whether that's
Hmm.
preventative, predictive, goes such a long way, right?
Toward uptime. Yeah.
Um, so not to get too techy, but those
Hmm.
those devices inside, for every 10 degrees uh, cooler that they are, it doubles their life.
Hmm.
So to the
So
extent
thermal
that you can say,
management's a
hey,
big deal then.
yeah, exactly, and you
Hmm.
might do something different for a charger that's in Phoenix than one that's in upstate New
St. Paul
York,
or
right?
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the fact that you have all that data, the fact that you can do that predictive modeling, the fact that you
Mm-hmm.
can then turn around and serve that up to the customer's maintenance people
Mm-hmm.
goes a tremendously long way in creating uptime. And again, that's what we've proven over, from the welding space. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just make a great product, it's your total approach to service and maintenance and predictability and things like
Mm-hmm.
that ultimately result in that 99% uptime type of performance.
So, sorry, can I get one more in real quick?
Go
for
for
it.
it. Go, yeah.
All right. So we just this past week, it's I think it went back to 2023 when Ford first announced it, but it seems like the industry in earnest is starting to truly switch over to NACS, starting
Yeah.
with the 2025 model year. We just saw announcements from Hyundai and Lucid, Ford. They were the first to officially announce they were going to adopt it. They haven't announced production models quite yet, but I imagine that's probably coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
The initial Velion models that I saw were CCS1. Obviously,
Yeah.
for the moment, that's kind of the predominant standard in North America. But I'm assuming you're kind of factoring in the NACS transition in terms of future product.
Yeah, for sure. So, we are in the throes of designing products that have both CCS1 and NACS. So, if you will, the charging pedestal, like in the pictures behind me,
Mhm.
if you will, would have both plugs on there. So,
Mhm.
so if you're a Tesla customer, great. If you're a CCS1 customer, great. You don't have to have adapters. You don't have to have any
Mhm.
of that.
Mhm.
Okay. So. Um, that's a fairly low cost
Mhm.
let's say upgrade, and we want to make it super easy for customers to be able to use. So yes, our standard products going forward will have both
Mhm.
CCS1 and NACS on them. That industry is evolving for sure, because
Mhm.
when Ford and GM said we're going to put the NACS connector on, there was no supply chain for that,
Mhm.
right? The only place to get an NACS connector was Tesla,
Was Tesla,
right?
yeah.
So, and Tesla published, hey, these are the CAD models. If you want to make an NACS connector, here's the CAD files. Okay, well, a company like Lincoln that's completely vertically integrated, we're like, wow, geez, what can we do with that, right? Let's look at one of these,
Yeah.
right? So, because we have rapid prototyping, we make something very similar to that connector. It happens to be a
Mhm.
welding gun. You hold it in your hand. We mold the
Yeah.
handle halves. We make all the parts inside. We, use the cable, all of that. We just took our guys and said, "Hey, look at this. What can you do?" And they made a
Mhm.
prototype NACS connector in a month, in 30 days.
Nice.
Said, "Hey, you know,
So I'm assuming going forward, like if a customer said, I want a dual head NACS
yep,
charger, like no problem.
no, totally fine." But for us, we
Mhm.
treat them as interchangeable. The charger's designed in such a way that they can be interchangeable, and so we think that there's a lot of opportunity there again
Mhm.
to create value and get out the solution from just one company. Now,
Mhm.
there's great people, there's great, connector manufacturers out there that make a great product. We
Mhm.
use them today.
Mhm.
At some point in the future, who knows, right?
Mhm.
Maybe Lincoln makes its own connectors.
Mhm.
So this is kind of early days for all of this. You've just kind of gotten into it. You're developing everything. What does I always hate the questions of what does it look like in 5 years or whatever. But what's your um, like how aggressive? I guess my question is how aggressive are you intending to be with this rollout, or is this a we'll kind of baby step in and we'll evaluate and then take another step, or is it like we know what we're doing? Because
Or
the one thing that I've got from
mhm.
this conversation is I came in thinking you're a hardware company, and the reality is you're kind of you're almost a
You
data
own the
company.
stack, yeah.
We're well,
Like,
we're a total solutions company. That's the way we
Mhm.
think about ourselves, right? So how aggressive? We believe in the space. We are aggressively investing in the space. We are here for the long term. This is not a fly by night kind of
Mhm.
approach for Lincoln. Also, we're not a startup. Many of the
Mhm.
people that are in this space are startups, and so
Mhm.
they're kind of because they have to be in this mode. It's all about top line revenue growth and things like that, and they leave
Mhm.
the customer behind.
Mhm.
Like, service, that looks like a cost. We're not really interested in the cost side. We're a startup. We need to just keep selling more, right?
Mhm.
And you see them get in trouble, right?
Mhm.
And so you've seen a number of bankruptcies happen, that type of stuff recently, because they're out over their skis. They're doing stuff that we would never do. So we're in this for the long term. So
Mhm.
what it looks like in 5 years is one thing I can guarantee is we'll still be here.
Mhm.
And we believe that we can be very successful doing it. And we'll have a good wide portfolio of solutions from low power to high power, not just and level 3. Maybe there's level 2 in there. Who knows? But the point is not about let's say just aggressive for aggressive sake.
Mhm.
It's where customers need a better solution, we want to be there.
Mhm.
Where they want a long-standing, very well financed, very strong company behind it,
Mhm.
that's where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
Um, I had a customer say, I've been buying chargers for a long time, but I will never buy a charger from a company that is their sole business.
Mhm.
I'm so happy that Lincoln's here because you have the bandwidth to do the other things that
Mhm.
many of these other companies can't do, like the service, like the long-term development. We like deep partnerships with our customers to
Mhm.
keep developing and creating solutions. Those are things that some of these other companies they don't have the bandwidth to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
we talked just on last week's episode that I've come to the realization, like when you looked at a lot of the EV world, and it was always, oh, the legacy, companies, and they don't get it, and it always seemed like it needed to be a new upstart that would get into whether it's car manufacturing, battery production,
mm,
EV chargers, all of this. It always seemed like you needed this new thing, but the problem is now is the expectation for profit is it's such a short window that
Mhm.
a lot of those companies just simply aren't gonna make it. And then
agreed.
there are these companies that have been around for say 100 or so years
Mhm.
that have this full knowledge and
Mhm.
the ability to scale it up. And my opinion
Mhm.
on who's gonna make it and who's not has completely flipped in the last maybe 3 months,
Mhm.
For
based on what
sure.
I'm seeing happening in the industry right now. And so I am welcoming any
Yeah.
company that the last thing that the EV industry can really afford right now is to have everything fail, because it was
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
startups that didn't
Yep.
they just didn't have the ability for the long haul. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciate big companies coming in
Yeah.
and doing stuff where, like you said, you're going to be around. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're
Well,
not
It,
going
and
anywhere.
plus, I mean, I know it goes without saying the importance of customer relationships to Lincoln,
for
um,
sure. For
and the
sure.
value of that.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So that's ultimately where we believe. This is not again a short-term thing.
Mhm.
And to your point, uh, people that want EVs, the transition has not gone as fast as a lot of people predicted, right? Now you
Mhm.
see the OEMs maybe pulling back a little bit. You see countries saying things like, "Well, we said we were going to be completely electric by 2040." Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's no longer the case, right?
Mhm.
So the industry is probably right sizing a bit, which is fine, right?
Mhm.
I think back to that sanity question, right? Then everybody I think can get their arms around what the future looks like in a much with a little bit more clarity, let's say, right?
Mhm.
And then again, companies like Lincoln can say, yeah, we're going to keep investing because this makes sense to us, right?
Totally. Well, Steve, I'm so glad we finally got this to work out, and we're able to coordinate our schedules for this, because I was really excited when I saw the announcement about the Velion line, and
Great.
a company with Lincoln's experience and reputation getting into this field. I actually kind of feel this could be a little bit of a catalyst for, I guess, demographic segments, whatever you want to call them, that have traditionally been a little skeptical or even a little hostile to EVs, saying, well, hey, if Lincoln's getting into it, then, it must be legit. So,
Yeah, all of a
I
sudden
mean,
you can trust the company. It's not an
yeah.
oddball company you've never heard of. It's not somebody you're unfamiliar with. It's especially when it comes to larger companies, like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
it's not exactly per se what's easy, but it's what's proven. It's what's
Mhm.
Yeah.
they have already tested your product. They
Mhm.
already
Yep.
know it's going to work. They already have the
Yeah.
relationship.
Yep.
And so it's got to be a lot easier for them to just pull the trigger
Yeah.
on a an acquisition, which isn't going to be uh, cheap for
Yeah.
for them to suddenly
Yeah.
install level
Yeah.
3 chargers.
Yeah. The other reason that we're kind of excited about this is we talk a lot about passenger vehicle charging, of course, but
Mhm.
as the rest of over the road electrifies, whether that's light or medium duty vehicles, certainly heavy duty vehicles in
Mhm.
the long term, again, that presents opportunities to create value as that industry
Mhm.
evolves. It's farther behind,
Mhm.
obviously, just simply passenger vehicle charging, but
Yeah.
then look at other industries. So again, the construction equipment space. So we help all of the construction and agricultural companies build their products today.
Mhm.
Again, whether that's a combine, whether that's a bulldozer,
Cat,
an
deer.
excavator, all
Yeah.
of that, right? Those folks are all
Mhm.
looking at electrification as a way to, participate more broadly
Mhm.
in the world, if you will. But
Mhm.
it makes a lot of sense too. If you're an underground mining equipment company, look, everything in the mine should be electric. You
Yeah.
don't want diesel fumes. You don't want the hazards down, in the mine because it's the right thing to do for the people that are there as well. So there's,
Mhm.
that whole space is super interesting, and we believe in that long term. Then take, port electrification. So whether
Mhm.
that's everything that's around the ship that's unloading containers, if you will, all electrifying, and
Mhm.
someday in the future, more and more marine vehicles,
Mhm.
boats, whatever, will be electric, right? Then take, airports, right? Why
Mhm.
there's no reason why everything running around an airport should be diesel. Make it electric, and you
Mhm.
see a number of those companies making those types of vehicles for good reason, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of other spaces that we think are super interesting, that will have a broad range of power requirements that need the kind of reliability, that we believe that we can offer. So we're not excited not just about the passenger vehicle
Mhm.
space, but everything else that comes along with it. We think
Mhm.
really gives a really great outlook for decades to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really looks like the two markets that are the easiest to electrify, easiest, quote unquote, is the like consumer grade and then the like ultra industrial
Mhm.
big machine. Like
Yeah,
it's the stuff in the middle
Yeah.
that's gonna take
yeah,
forever to
Yeah.
make that stuff work. But
yeah.
I
So
was just
you talk about blow your mind a little bit, right? So we had one of those construction equipment companies come and say, hey, our big dump trucks that are in the bottom of the mine, if you will, we
Mhm.
want to electrify those. It's like, okay, great. Let's talk about what that takes. So, well, we need a 6 megawatt charger. I mean, 6 megawatts. I'm like, yeah. I mean, we'd love to work with you on that. What substation are you going to have next to the mine, right, to deliver that kind of power? But
Yeah.
that's well within their radar and strategy
Yeah. Yeah.
around all types of vehicles
Mhm.
electrifying, right? The biggest challenge, of course, is the grid. Whether
Sure.
we can get the grid where it needs to be, and whether transmission of that generation electricity to where it needs to be. I think those are the biggest challenges for the industry.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but we have high hopes that that'll get solved as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So it sounds like you're kind of looking at the whole gamut,
Oh
lower
yeah,
power to ultra high power,
for sure.
you know.
Yeah, and then I forgot the other one, aviation, right? I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
we've had a couple of those companies just ask us questions, like, hey, can you make one? It's kind of specific for us, but we
Mhm.
want to do, move packages from one delivery hub to another, and we don't want to go over
Mhm.
the road. We want to pick up 1,000 pounds worth of packages, deliver
Mhm.
them from one hub to another. Can you help us do that? Like, yeah, we can
Hmm.
help you do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, again, just thank you so much for your time. This was a
My
really
pleasure.
fascinating conversation, and would love to have you back in a year or however
Yeah.
long for an
I'd
update on kind of how things are going and
love to do it.
new projects.
yeah,
Love
I
to do
mean,
it.
this completely changed everything I was thinking going into the interview. I learned a lot from this. So thank
Wow.
you very much
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
for the time here.
We're excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, thank you.